This episode is brought to you by The Uncommon. Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia. I am your host and a wedding photographer at Lydia Rachel Photography. On today's episode, I'm chatting to the lovely Greta. She is the founder and editor of Together Journal magazine, the most beautiful, well-designed modern wedding magazine. I know many of you have used it in your wedding planning journeys, and it comes up a lot as inspiration on this podcast. I know I have stacks of them, and I always just love seeing all the different features, real weddings and editorials that are showcased in them. Greta comes from a background in fashion and wedding photography. We chat a bit about her own wedding and then the background of how she started Together Journal and what led her to even coming up with it. We chat about trends in the industry, what she thinks we'll be seeing more of, changes that she's noticed. We chat about having a strategy with how you consume content during your wedding planning season. She has a lot of incredible advice and wisdom. I think you will get a lot out of this one. So we'll get right into it. Enjoy episode 73 with Greta. Hi Greta, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. Excited to chat to you. You were deep in the wedding world, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of wisdom for us.
Thanks, Lydia. It's really lovely to be here.
I wanted to ask you firstly about your own wedding, which was a little while ago now, I believe.
Yeah.
But can you tell us a bit about planning your own wedding? What was kind of the vibe at the time, and how you found that whole planning process?
We had a very unconventional wedding. We had it in Tauranga at my parents-in-law. They have a home that my husband lived in all his life. I think his parents moved into the house when they first got married when they were about 20, and they've never left it. So it's a very historical family home that they're still in now. So it was quite special to get married there. We actually ended up kind of building the style of our wedding around the band that we had and the food that we had. So they were like two of the really important things for us, which is what I often tell people to think about. Like, what are the two most important things? Sometimes it might be the same thing for each person in the couple. Sometimes they might have one thing each. So if it's the same thing, I'd say pick two together and use those things that are most important to you, kind of to shape your wedding and to maybe spend the most of your budget on. So we had a fantastic band called Cantuta, who at the time were quite famous, and it was a Latin band. And we also had an amazing caterer who had spent a lot of time overseas, and she loved cooking Latin food. So we had a Latin band and we had Latin food, and we kind of had a Latin themed wedding, even though neither of us had any Latino heritage. But we let that guide, and it was more like a Latin festival, really.
So good. Were you a wedding vendor already back then? So you had a bit of an
No,
idea about.
I was working in fashion. So the base of my career, or majority of my career, has been in fashion brand management and fashion marketing and fashion buying. So I was working at the time as a brand manager for a clothing company called Stax, who they had about 30 stores in New Zealand at the time, and they did a lot of corporate workwear and a lot of ball gown and bridesmaids dresses. So that was my job at the time.
Went on to work in weddings and everything as well, which we'll get into.
Yeah, with the wedding planning process personally, I'm a very organized person. I think I'm a planner by nature, and I'm very good with deadlines, which is probably why I'm now in media. So for me, I kind of looked at it as a work project, and I was always managing projects and timelines at work. So I just used the skills that I had from the fashion industry really to plan my wedding, and just really did things the way that we wanted to do them. Like, I had a pink dress. It was an Alice Temperley gown that I bought off the rack. It wasn't a wedding gown. I've actually worn it 3 or 4 times since. I'd still wear it today. I still love it. So yeah, really unconventional. And I think probably my fashion background flowed through into the wedding planning and styling process as well.
Love that. Was there anything, if you can remember, that you found difficult about the whole planning process?
Yes, I do. And I think I'd be a little bit more forthright about it now. And I think it's become a little bit easier since COVID. the guest list and pressure from parents on both sides to invite people who were not really there for us. They were probably more there because that our parents or parents-in-laws had been invited to their weddings in the past. So they felt obliged to invite them to ours. And I feel like a lot of that's changed since COVID. I feel like since COVID, and because wedding guest list became a lot smaller and we kind of looked deeper into what the wedding was all about, I feel like it's given people permission or authority, or it's become quite normalized not to have to invite so many people. And I think people are becoming more confident to say, no, I haven't seen them in the last couple of years. They're not really that important to me. They're not coming to the wedding. So probably that I definitely would shave my guest list now to people who, I mean, some people I haven't even seen since, and they were there really for parents.
Yeah, it's such a common thing that comes up and can be really tricky to navigate with family. But yeah, I think it has changed a lot, like you say, and it's a bit more accepted now and to kind of stick to your guns of who you want there. That's probably the thing that you would do differently now. Is there anything else you think you would kind of change?
Probably not, to be honest. I mean, obviously there would be some little styling tweaks because things have changed. But I mean, like I said, I still genuinely love my dress and would wear it tomorrow and have worn it like to many balls and things like that. It doesn't look like a wedding
Love
dress. It
that.
just looks like a beautiful minimalist kind of pink gown. And I think we were quite careful about, and this is something I'm going to get into a little bit later in our conversation. We were quite careful at looking at our environment. I mean, obviously, I've just said it was Latin theme, and it wasn't a Latin environment, but we had the Latin food and the Latin band. But then I also looked at the garden and the environment that we had it in. My mother-in-law has a beautiful garden, and the way that their house is set up, we were able to we had a huge market. We had quite a lot of people at our wedding. We had about 150 or 160, and the way that the garden set up, the flowers and like the hydrangea bushes and everything were actually inside the marquee, which was really beautiful. So we said to the florist to look at the garden and just kind of make whatever flowers you're doing an extension of what's already there. So yeah, I think we were quite careful at looking at the environment and not trying to bend it too much. I still loved that we went with the two, when we love food and we love music, and the band really made it for us. They were incredible. They had everybody up dancing. It was really special. And people still talk about the food as well. Like, we loved the food. We had sangria and lots of different Spanish dishes. It was great.
Makes such a difference having a good band as well, just the whole vibe of the day.
Yeah, it was so good that we actually had our speakers confiscated by the police at about two
Oh
o'clock
no.
in the morning after about three noise warnings. They were very nice about it. But yeah, it was a good party.
Sign of a good party,
Yeah.
definitely. Amazing. So, a lot of people know already you're the creator and editor of Together Journal, which is an incredible wedding magazine. Yeah, you've touched on it a little bit, but if you could tell us a bit about your background and, yeah, how you kind of got to that, what sparked the idea for Together Journal, and yeah, a bit more about your journey.
It all just kind of happened accidentally and kind of organically. So, as I mentioned before, I was working in the fashion industry, which I absolutely loved. It was an amazing job, a very, very full on job. And after our wedding, I became pregnant with our first child. So, I took maternity leave. And this was at a time when lots of friends were getting married. And I had studied marketing and photography. And I'd had a lot of experience on fashion photo shoots and things through my job in fashion. And a lot of friends had started to ask me to shoot their weddings, to photograph their weddings, because I'd always loved photography and I was always shooting in the background, mainly like art prints and things like that. And when I started shooting weddings, which was quite a long time ago, um, how long ago? 17 years ago, 18 years ago. And it was kind of changing. Like, before I started shooting, it was quite a formulaic kind of a process. There was a lot of heavy editing. There was a lot of kind of cliched poses of people jumping on the beach and dipping couples, and it was all very kind of posed and planned out. And about the time that I started, there was a wave of photographers, especially so in Australasia, that were coming through and shooting weddings in kind of a documentary press style. So just capturing the day as it unfolded. Definitely they were still spending a little bit of time getting those post portraits, but kind of in a more natural, organic, authentic way. So I kind of came into the market at quite a good time, and there was a bit of a wave brewing and people were wanting a different style of photography, and Australasians were very good at it, and they were starting to be very known for it, and were starting to book a lot of weddings overseas in the Northern Hemisphere because their approach to wedding photography was so fresh and new. So I started shooting a few friends' weddings, and then their friends that I didn't know would see the photos and they started asking me. And I was kind of doing a little bit of this when I was on maternity leave, but I still wanted to work in fashion. So I went back, and I was only back at my job for about 2 or 3 months before I discovered I was actually pregnant again, which was amazing, but a little bit unplanned. I planned to have a slightly bigger gap. I've got two sons that are 16 months apart. They're 16 and 17 now. But to try and do that fashion job with five round the world buying trips every year and then going into China as well was impossible to do with two babies. So I resigned because of having two babies at home, and the wedding offers just kept coming in. And before I knew it, I was shooting a lot of weddings across New Zealand and Australia, Indonesia. Went up to America as well and shot quite a few. And then I think because I had a marketing brain, one thing that I noticed was that there was a platform missing for the type of weddings that I was shooting and a lot of the people that I knew in the industry were shooting. The wedding platforms that were there and the magazines that were there were all beautiful, but they were very traditional and classic. And they weren't really catering for the style of weddings or photographies that were starting to emerge quite strongly. So I just had this little thing going around in my brain. At the time, I was shooting for Kinfolk magazine. So that's a big lifestyle, a global lifestyle magazine. And I loved that magazine and I loved working with the team. And I actually spoke to them. I said, look, I feel like there's a gap for somebody to do a magazine like this, but focused on weddings that could be global as well. And they were really supportive. Told me to go for it. Actually, they were a small team at the time, they're huge now. And I think they've been through a couple of acquisitions, but I was really lucky to be working with them initially. And they gave me some advice on my design. I remember showing them the design that my designer had come up with, and they said it was beautiful. And they even helped me get into Barnes and Noble. They gave me a few contacts. So I was very lucky to be aligned with them at the time. They were very helpful and forthcoming and sharing with their knowledge and advice.
Cool to hear a bit more about that journey. And I yeah, remember around that time when you launched it, and such a cool new thing that was needed in the space, I think, for sure.
I was really lucky to have the support of the people that I had as well. It wasn't a decision that I just did without talking to a lot of people in the industry. A lot of photographers were very supportive and gave me a lot of content. So I do feel like I was really lucky to have that support from the industry, and majority of them were friends who were photographers who I still work with now and still feature a lot. They really, really helped me initially. And I definitely feel like I owe them a lot, and I'm very thankful to them.
So cool. I guess it's a bit of a risk doing something that's a bit more traditional print media, but it's such a beautiful magazine that I think people hold on to. I know I've got a stack of them, just being a wedding vendor, and send them out to my couples as well. And you've obviously got like a strong digital platform too.
Yeah, I think I'm really lucky. I mean, we're so lucky to get the content that we get, and I'm in my 8th year now with the magazine, and like literally every couple of days something comes in, someone submits something, and I'm still like, wow, that's so cool. I haven't seen that before, or I haven't seen it done that way before. Like I'm still really stimulated and interested, and genuinely still really blown away by the types of things that are happening in the wedding industry. I feel like it's getting better and better. The stationery, the florals, the photography, the venues, like everything. Like it's just getting more and more elevated and more artistic and creative. And it's just so beautiful and inspiring to see.
Yeah, so good. It's amazing how it just keeps evolving, and
Yeah.
people kind of
Yeah.
think, oh, you've been in doing this for years, you must just get over it. You must see the same thing all the time. But
We do see a lot of the same thing. And sometimes I feel so sorry for people because, like, for example, it's often just timing. So, we can only print 12 to 14 weddings a quarter. It's hugely expensive to put a wedding in print. Like, it literally costs us thousands. Like, when you think about the paper, the print process, and then paying the writers, paying the designers. So every wedding that goes in is it's a big investment on our half. So we've got to be really careful about what we're picking. So we try and pick, a low budget, a high budget, a boho, a traditional, and just cover as many bases as we can for our audience. And it can literally be just that another wedding that was a very similar style, or maybe even had the same dress or the same venue, came in a week before, and we've already filled that gap. So it can be really hard explaining to people why they haven't been accepted for print, or whatever it is. It's basically often because that box has already just been filled, and we can't afford to do two that are so similar. Yeah, so it's tough. We do see a lot of the same stuff, but it's of a very high level, but we can only take so much of each thing.
Forget what you thought about canned wine. The Uncommon is here to change the game. Delight in Twiggy, their deliciously dry, blushing rosé, shimmering with strawberries and dreams. Or sip on Leonard, a bubbly Sauvignon Blanc bursting with tropical fruits and zesty citrus. They're not just another glass of the usual. Perfectly packaged in slimline single-serve cans, ideal for weddings, bridal showers, or those laid-back day-after celebrations. The Uncommon makes enjoying beautiful wine effortless. Convenient, sustainable, undeniably chic, and almost impossible to sip, so please try and savour. Find The Uncommon at select Woolworths, New Worlds and Farrow Fresh stores, or visit their website at wearetheuncommon.co.nz. And just for podcast listeners, they've kindly given us a discount code for 20% off at checkout. Use the code WEDDING20 on their website to get 20% off your order for a limited time. For 18 years and over, always drink responsibly. Thank you so much to The Uncommon for supporting this episode of the Kiwi Wedding podcast. Touching on kind of current trends, are there things that you're noticing at the moment or that you think will be seen this kind of upcoming season, New Zealand especially?
Yeah, I'm still really blown away by the amount of destination weddings. It's quite phenomenal. I mean, I love it. I love the trend. So, I mean, a lot of our content, probably over half at the moment that we're seeing come in, are destination weddings, mainly in Europe. Although I must say, I am starting to notice a little pickup in places like Bali and Thailand. So that's been quite interesting. But still, we're seeing tons of weddings in Italy. New Zealand and Australian couples going over to Italy to have a 3 or 4 day wedding celebration. Not just Australasians, but Americans, everyone. But I'm still surprised because New Zealand's so far away, right? It's a long way to go and have guests come, but we're still seeing such a strong flow in our market. And remember, we're not Together Journal is not the magazine for everybody. Our demographic is middle to high income. Quite non-traditional, quite design-driven. So I'm speaking about our market. I'm not speaking about, everybody across New Zealand and Australia. I'm speaking about our niche. So definitely Italian, Portuguese, French weddings still incredibly strong, with a little bit of pickup in like Bali and Thailand, which I think we're going to probably see more of, and I think it will spread out across Asia as well, and across Europe also. I mean, we're starting to see much more in Portugal. That's got a flow to Greece and other places like that. So tons and tons of destination weddings. Because of that, I'm starting to see more European styling featured in New Zealand weddings. So, an Italian style wedding at Mudbrick on Waiheke, which actually lends itself very well to that venue because you could almost be in Italy looking out across, the vineyards and things like that. So, because of those destination weddings, seeing that European styling at home. And then colour, we're still seeing a lot more colour, which I really, really like. Yellow is still really strong. Multicolours across bridesmaids, tableware, napkins. But if I had to pick one colour out of all the colours that I'm still seeing quite strongly, it would be those shades of yellow. And they go from quite a soft lemon to even quite a bold yellow. And, I'm often seeing full bridesmaids in yellow.
Oh, I love that. So cool to hear. I've definitely noticed that as well. And that European Italian vibe is so beautiful. So it'd be
The
interesting to
other thing,
see.
actually,
Yeah.
just looking at is multi outfits. I love a multi outfit. So we often see two outfits from the bride. Starting to see the guys do that a little bit more, which I really, really like. I think the guys should consider it more, and it doesn't have to be an expensive, they don't have to go and get another custom suit, but maybe even just having a brighter colored shirt for the reception, or if your budget is a little bit higher, perhaps maybe having some secrets for reception, like a bolder coloured suit jacket or something like that. I just think don't let the girls have all the fun. I think the guys should really consider that second outfit. And also in summer, when it's really hot in Australasia or any country, you're going to get hot and sweaty. So it's actually really nice to maybe be able to have a quick shower and slip into something different for that reception. If you've had a 30-degree day in the Hawke's Bay, it's not a bad idea.
Often need a backup shirt.
Yeah, and it just changes your whole vibe, You kind of hit the dance floor and you've got this renewed energy because you've got this whole new look. I think it's a really fun thing to do for yourself and to surprise guests and things too.
Yeah, I love that. I think grooms are often a bit overlooked as well.
It's definitely starting to change. I'm definitely seeing it in more weddings, but I think the guys can definitely push it a bit more.
Absolutely. Love that. Be a bit more bold with fashion, having different looks, yeah,
Yeah, I think
designs.
it's really nice as well because often that reception outfit is not as formal. So great to be able to get yourself, I don't know, maybe like a really cool colored velvet jacket or an amazing floral shirt or a yellow striped shirt or something that you're going to be able to wear again yourself, maybe to someone else's wedding or for a night out or whatever it is. And then every time you put it on, hopefully you're going to be like, oh, this was my wedding shirt. It's going to make you feel happy and give you some memories each time you wear it. So it's not also not wasteful. Hopefully, you're going to buy something that you want to wear again, but also have those nice nostalgic feelings when you do wear it.
Yeah, I love that. Being intentional with those details.
And I think that's probably a really important thing to note as well. Like, I just, like often I'll turn a wedding down because I'll just see everybody's got these favors that just look really wasteful. Just be intentional, buy things that can be used again, or don't buy them if they can't be used again. If you can pass things on after your wedding, do. And just maybe try and have a little think about the environmental impact of your wedding, and if you're being careful about that. Most planners and florists and people like that have that front of mind now, and they're buying in season and they're providing props and things that can be used over and over again, or couples are buying things or using things that they might use afterwards in their home or whatever, which is great.
Absolutely. Such an important thing to consider. And yeah, again, can be like overlooked. You're like, it's just this once in a lifetime day. But
Yeah, and like I said with the clothes, like you might decide to have plants on your table and they could be indoor plants that you have in your home afterwards. And again, like each time you look at it, you're like, oh, that was the plant wall or the plant whatever that I had at my wedding, or it could be some vases that you bought for the head table, but you knew you were going to use them in your home afterwards. That kind of thing. It's nice from a memory point of view, but it's also a bit kinder on the environment as well.
are there sort of changes that you've noticed in the last few years since the pandemic and going into a bit of a recession as well? Are there things that you've noticed with weddings that have changed?
Yes, and I think a lot of these things are what you call the silver lining of COVID. For us, we really felt like post COVID, a lot of the things that we were trying to push became fast tracked. So we've always tried to encourage couples to be more thoughtful about what's important to them and what their style is. And I feel like because we had to do so many things differently in COVID, it's push people to start thinking, where can I have my wedding? I might not be able to have it in a venue with 100 people at the moment because of COVID. So why don't I look at my local restaurant and have 40 people, for example? I love that restaurant. I love Spanish food. Let's have a Spanish wedding at the Spanish restaurant. Things like that started happening more and more. And they were things that we had noticed starting a tiny bit, and they were the things that we had kind of pounced on in the past and tried to push out, and they were getting momentum. But after COVID, all those really original, different things, because people had to start thinking out of the box, really started to come to the forefront, and then they really caught on. And I think going back to what I said about the guest lists as well, because we had to cut down the guest lists and because people couldn't travel, weddings became smaller, and now it's very acceptable to have a wedding with a smaller guest list without extended family or parents, friends, or whatever. So I do love those trends that have pushed people to be more original, more authentic to themselves. And I love seeing, like we've always said to people, there's lots of traditions in a wedding. You don't have to do any of them, or you can change them, or you can make your own up. So it's really nice to see things like, I don't know, just moving things around, like having the cake during the day, or not, maybe not even having a single cake, maybe having a dessert table with all your favorite desserts on it, not even worrying about a cake. We had pinatas at our wedding instead of like cakes, like really great handmade ones. So yeah, I just feel like people have been given the permission, or they've seen it many more times, and it's given them the confidence to do things the way they want to do them and to create or adapt traditions to suit them.
Yeah, I love that. It's been so cool to see, and especially it was like tough times for people having to slash their guest list during that time, but
Yep.
something so special about a more intimate wedding, and then yeah, can do a bit more with your money with less people, or just yeah, like you say, think outside the box. So
Yeah, and even things like you don't even have to have a wedding. Like, we've seen a lot more engagement parties and then people eloping, or people eloping first and having an engagement party and then showing film of them on top of a mountain in Queenstown because they actually got married or they eloped a week earlier. You can do whatever you want, and I think that's probably what you need to remember, that it is your day and you need to do what suits you and your partner.
I love that people are questioning that more and not just doing the traditions for the sake of traditions, or that's
Or
what
for
your
for
parents
other
did or
people.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping up with the Joneses as well. Like, just because your friend had, a 50, 60, $70,000 wedding at Mudbrook, it doesn't mean that yours isn't going to be more beautiful, and you might be having a BYO picnic wedding in a public park. And often they're the ones that we end up putting in print because they're just so beautiful and authentic, and so don't compare or compete, just do what feels right for you.
That's such a big thing I hear a lot as well, that whole social media comparison. I know a lot of people can get overwhelmed with the amount of content out there, or even just from their friends on Instagram or whatever, and they kind of get a bit of decision fatigue and yeah, questioning their own thing. But yeah, do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, I do, and I can see how hard it must be with all of these content machines like Together Journal and all the rest. So I think my first piece of advice would be to look broad. Like, there's so many great platforms, and that's what I definitely know. That's another thing I've noticed post COVID, actually. The emergence of, and I wrote about it in my editor's letter in the most recent issue, actually. There's been an emergence of wedding platforms coming through, especially digital ones, and they're just fantastic. And from my point of view, I actually really like it because it just makes this whole momentum that I was talking about before, about authentic weddings and new traditions. It just makes the whole wave move faster. We're kind of stronger together, and everybody is a little bit different. Everybody has their little piece of the pie, so it's nice to see this wave of more modern platforms coming through. But modern might not be your thing. So what I would say is go broad, get on Google, have a look at all the platforms, and hopefully you should notice after seeing a few weddings which platforms resonate with you the most, and maybe just start limiting yourself to one or two platforms that are featuring the weddings that you really like, because I do genuinely believe we've all got our little, I mean, obviously there's crossover, but there'll be one or two that you just like more than the others. Have a look at the Instagram feeds, have a look at the websites, and just choose the couple. They might not even be from New Zealand, whoever they are, just choose them and maybe look at them. And then with regards to styling, I would say again, kind of go broad, but then be really selective. Think about your budget, think about your location, and just start whittling down what styles or ideas are going to work for you. And don't try and do something that's really not going to fit your vibe. Like, quite often, I'll see just quite strange props in a weird place. Like, for example, You might be having a really low key beach wedding, and then like the props and the high gear might be too high end, too cocktail bar for the environment. Sometimes that can work really well. Things can juxtapose each other really nicely. And there's definitely some stylists and planners that do a great job of that. And I would say probably leave those really juxtaposition-y things to them because it can be quite hard to pull off. So I'd say have a look at your environment, think about your budget, and use those things as tools to whittle down your ideas as well. And then once you start getting a smaller pot of ideas, just try and stay focused on that and kind of maybe stop looking outside of them too much because it can get overwhelming. It's very easy to be pulled off your target.
Yeah, amazing. That's great advice.
If you're using a florist or a stylist or a planner, talk to them as well about your environment and because they have done so many weddings. They are so good at what they do. They know what flowers are out. They know what's available. They know what you can get for your budget. So lean on them because they will know a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. Chat to your vendors, pick their brains.
Mhm.
They've been to hundreds more weddings than you have,
Yeah,
probably. So,
yeah.
yeah. And is there any sort of common mistakes that you see couples making? You've probably mentioned a few things, but yeah, anything you've kind of
I
noticed?
think definitely, again, it goes back to looking at your location. I think that the whole styling and planning process should really come from that location. And I think when I see weddings that have been executed really well, like the ones that end up going into print, they really suit the environment that they're in. There's so much to be garnered from your location. So it could even just be when you're deciding on your palette for florals and tabletop and what your bridesmaids are going to wear, or if you're going to wear color yourself, like you don't have to wear white or cream as a bride. I know a perfect example, I had like a dusky pink, but have a look at the tones in the landscape. If you're getting married in the country, there'll be beautiful greens and maybe, more neutral tans of the earth. And yeah, I think about Australia and I think about some of the reds in the desert. Really have a look at your environment and the colors that are in it and use that as kind of the base. You might be having a beachside wedding where there's a lot of turquoise and blue, and you might want to use yellow to pop against that turquoise and blue. So use those locations, and it doesn't have to be an outside location either. It could be the interior of a restaurant or the interior of a wedding venue or a theatre or wherever you're having your wedding. But I think use those base locations to be where the styling first kind of evolves from the color palette. And then again, the style. So, like if it's an outdoor wedding, maybe think a little bit more earthy with regards to how you're going to furnish and style that event space as well. And really, that's the key to it.
Yeah, I love that. That's such great advice. It definitely kind of suits the whole vibe more when you just pull from the surroundings, thinking
Yeah,
about you
don't
as the
try and
couple.
change something too much. Change the location if you want, if you really want to have, I don't know, like a cocktail vibe or whatever, go have it in a cocktail space. Maybe not, don't have it on a farm, you know?
Exactly. Love that. And yeah, I feel like you've given a lot of amazing advice already, but is there anything you would say to couples planning their wedding at the moment? Any pearls of wisdom?
I think I've touched on a couple of them already. Definitely talk together and pick your two most important things. So you might have different things each, like food. When I think back to ours, I really wanted the food to be amazing, and my husband really wanted the band and the music to be amazing. So they were the two most important things that we kind of booked first. We knew we were going to have it at his parents' house, so we were kind of lucky. We had a lot of flexibility with dates, obviously, because it was the only wedding they've ever had at their house. But yeah, think about those two things. It could be that you really have your sights set on a particular photographer. So you might need to check with them about their availability, or there's a specific venue that you really want to get married at. So again, check with their availability, put your budget there, get the dates from them, get those really important two things, or it could be three for you. I don't know, two to three to four, and put a stake in the sand by trying to get those things that you want first. That's probably where you're going to spend the majority of your money. Get them down, get them booked in, and then let everything build from there. And then I think it's really easy to get advice and tools now. Like we've got our wedding planner book. We're going to also be releasing a lot more digital planning tools. And so many people can give you a really great timeline. So everyone's going to have different timelines. Some people, I mean, we had a 3 month engagement. We've been together for 7 years. So we planned our wedding in 3 months. So your wedding could, it could be 3 months away or it could be 2 years away, whatever. You will find that there's planning tools that tell you, when you should be booking things within different time frames. So once you've got those main things booked in, just write diary notes and book in all the other things at the right time. Tick your boxes as you go, and that will help it be as stress-free as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Such good advice. It's a lot of about being organized for sure. And then if you don't have the time for that, hiring a planner.
Yeah, and don't like I said again before, don't do things because you feel pressured to do them. If at any point, I mean, we've all got a gut feeling, right? If at any point something just feels like a little bit awkward or a little bit off, go with your gut. Like, don't invite those people. Don't spend that much money. If you don't quite like something, don't book it. Book something else. Remember, it is your wedding day, so you need to control it and make sure that it is how you want it to be. And I think also remember, I don't know, when I look back on the weddings that I've been to, the things that stand out for me are often like little moments in the ceremony that made me feel a bit teary, or a funny speech, or like just dancing at midnight on the dance floor with all my friends. Like they are the things that are sticking in my mind from my friends' weddings. And sure, I can remember bits of the styling and things like that, but the most important things are those really emotive moments and memories that I have in my mind that I cherish. So, and I think most people are probably the same.
Yeah, those human experiences so important. Amazing. It's been so lovely to chat to you today. Is there anything else you wanted to add or that we missed?
Think so. I think just enjoy your wedding. And it's so nice to see weddings. I feel like weddings have become something a lot more than they used to be in terms of being recognised, for the creativity that they have in them. Like, I feel like people are really recognising and respecting photographers and florists and stylists as artists. Like, everything's kind of gone up a notch. And I think it should have been like that a long time ago as
It
well.
wasn't
But
always like that.
people are getting the credit they deserve. Like there's so many talented people in this industry, and a lot of the people that work in the industry are not just doing weddings. They are doing photography for exhibitions or florals for exhibitions, and it's so nice to see all of those experts finally being recognized and on par with fashion photographers or artists, or not everybody. Obviously there's exceptional people in every industry, but there truly is a lot more respect and recognition for wedding vendors, and it's really nice to see that.
Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Lovely chatting to you.